We're back.
Praise be.
Blessed be thy fruit.
That's what it is. Blessed be. No. All right.
I don't know.
Shouts out on the cusp documentary crew for teaching us that. I feel like that was. We were just talking about that documentary.
Yeah.
Turn on the camera, Shay. Welcome to our reintroduction.
Yes.
I especially feel like I've come across a very harshly sarcastic and cynical on this YouTube channel, which I am. But
I don't think you need to say that about yourself.
okay. Okay, that's fair. Okay. Allow us to reintroduce ourselves.
Allow me to introduce myself.
Okay, let's start with, let's just say, hi, I'm Justine.
I'm Shaylin.
And we created this YouTube channel because we want to share our stories. Because why not?
Yeah, and there's like no one else like us.
Yeah, that's true.
That we see representation of, and
yes.
Yeah, it's just also very healing for us and a lot of what we've been through to just talk about it and have people react to it.
Yeah. And have people connect to it. And yeah, that's a good point. I think everywhere we go, we meet people that have questions for us and that are very interested in our story, and we get it. We're cool. So we're like, here to share it. And the way that we talk, if it's like sarcastic or cynical or whatever, it's because that's who we are and that's how we cope. Like humor is a big thing for us.
It's just who we are. It's our personality. And so I think we want this channel to be very authentic and actually who we are, not a polished version for the camera.
Yeah, especially since COVID, because we used to like be out in the community a lot more often and have people to kind of talk to about this stuff more frequently.
Definitely.
But now it's just us in a way. So to talk about it on here is a way to like tell everyone the same thing at once. And yeah, we just want it to be like as if we saw you in public or had you over at our house and we're telling you what we went through in the week or whatever. So it's just very raw. And yeah.
This is how we talk to our friends. And we know that like we haven't met a ton of you, but that's just who we are. And yeah. So if that offends you, this may not be the right channel for you.
Yeah, I think the reason we're bringing this up is we're not what people expect us to be.
Yes.
They expect us to be like, I don't know, very, very polished and very like straight and narrow type of thing. And we're not afraid to talk about the fact that we smoke weed or to swear on camera or to call people out, like our landlord, for doing things that are disrespectful and just unprofessional also.
Yeah.
Because I think that's how I am just in life in general. I get in trouble all the time at my jobs and whatever, just for like speaking up and whatever and calling people out, even if they're in a position of authority. Which I think is like what I see all the time on Instagram, especially like memes and stuff. People talk a high game of like wanting to call people out and hold people accountable. And so like this is what it looks like. So when we're talking about our landlord or doctors, for example, and like telling our story of how this is just one example of how people like can't take constructive criticism. I think I want to go especially to the landlord thing because I had like more than one people reach out to me and be like, oh, my landlord does this too, or like my landlord won't give me any notice either, and kind of brush it off. And I get that it's not the end of the world, and I get that I'm not actually being that inconvenienced, and it's like a first world problem. But if I, as a 25-year-old woman that is renting in a legal contract with this man, cannot hold him accountable to the legal contract in a professional manner, like what kind of messages is that sending both him and us and society as a whole, that it's just expected to like brush it off and be like, oh, whatever, like you're in this contract, but it doesn't matter because you're the older man and we're the younger women. You know, it's just like, yeah, we get fired up about these little things because they are contributing to a larger systemic issue that we are very aware of and want to talk about and open conversation about, even if it's uncomfortable. That like we've known each other for 15 years. learned a weird communication style between the two of us, and we are aware that our bond at its core is like a trauma bond.
Yeah.
We were both going through a lot of trauma as children when we met, and we bonded through that. And so that impacts our relationship even to this day. It is something that we're still figuring out. So yeah, when we went to Hawaii together for 10 days, it was like super fun and amazing, but it was also kind of a shit show because we're still dealing with all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And I think what I want to bring up about that is like my partner Pete and my best friend Adri, who's also a longtime friend of Shay's, came with us, and we all went together on this trip, and it was super great. But they both kind of had a front row view to the reality of our life day in and day out, and traveling. And one of the only things I think I want to quote Pete is like, he just said multiple times, he was just like, I totally have a whole new perspective of just how every little thing that you do in a day is different and has to be adapted.
Yeah.
And just like the toll that can take on a person when it feels like everything's working against you.
And the toll that takes when you have to do that about every little thing.
Yes.
Like, it's not just one thing in a day. It's every little thing all day. We have to be thinking of how to make it work.
Yeah. So, for example, like, quick summary, it's like getting off the plane is a different process. Getting on the bus is a different process. Getting off the bus is a different process. Getting into buildings is a different process. Getting into the water is a different process. Like, every single thing. Getting dressed is a different process. Getting ready to leave the house is a different process. Just every
part of it.
Yeah. And it's when you're not used to it, it's like, it feels like a lot for sure. And I think they would both agree with me, like the people that traveled with us.
Yeah.
And that it's just like, it feels like, it's like you recognize that you're not angry at the fact that it's like takes more time and more patience. It's just like, it's just weird. It's just, you realize how everything is set up to not be convenient unless you're able-bodied. And
I think it's like a weird awareness for people, because until you like are constantly exposed to it day in and day out, it's, you just don't think about some of those things.
Or even if you can comprehend it, you don't. Yeah, that's the thing. You don't comprehend like what it's like to consistently be exposed to that and be in it.
Starting off, as we were leaving, we had a lot of issues getting through just our check-in, and it was a lot to do with like ableism and lack of training about disabilities, and questioning if my medical bag was a medical bag and if my wheelchair was allowed on the plane and how that all worked. And we ended up spending 2 hours like
just trying to check in,
trying to prove that my chair could travel and that my medical bag contained medical supplies. And through that whole jumble, because it was so long, so many people, they ended up losing my medical bag, which meant we landed in Hawaii with no wheelchair charger, not enough catheters, not my like specialized bed and pillow. All that stuff was missing for the first 2 days of our trip.
And so the first few days of our trip, we couldn't go very far because she doesn't have enough wheelchair battery to travel far from we didn't really go further than across the street at the beginning. And then also like calling the airport people, dealing with tracking down the bag and getting it back, on top of all of the added travel things, such as we got a lift for while we were there because it was a 10-day trip, and we both know my body can't do that. So we got like a mechanical lift to help us, and so we had to be there for that to be delivered and for it to be picked up at the end of the trip. So there was like a big chunk of time that was like just organizing all of these things that could be so much easier if the professionals doing it were trained and prepared for it. Because I think that was the most frustrating thing, is that we have flown a million times together, and it never has it taken us 2 hours to check in, and it was not on one individual person. It was literally the whole entire team didn't know what to do with a wheelchair being there, which is not okay. And we had to wait a really long time because the one person that does handle special assistance was on her lunch break, but nobody communicated to us that she was on lunch break. They just left us standing there and wondering. So there's just like a lot of small customer service and just like human to human things that happened that were super inappropriate. As she mentioned her bag, one of the ladies directly said to me like, "Oh, you're just trying to get a free bag." And I immediately said, do I need to prove it to you? Like, I will open this bag and show you the medical equipment that's in there. And I had to list it in public in front of everyone else that is checking in, while we're kind of being just like harassed and shamed.
Yeah.
For the fact that you need a medical bag.
And that my wheelchair needs to go with me through the gate.
And that's when someone is visibly disabled. Like, I can't even imagine there's a whole other community of people that have non-visible disability that have to deal with the same thing, and I can't even imagine the fact that they doubted it was a medical bag when it's like, hello, like clearly there's some extra needs at hand. Like, it was a lot. And so anyways, we get through, and that's the thing. So then they tried to reconcile it by being like, well, you still have a lot of time. But no, that's not how our life works. We got there that early because we know security takes extra time. We have to be the first ones on the plane, so we have to be there like bam and speak with the gate, get people from the tarmac up to transfer her wheelchair down. It's a whole collaborative effort, and we know that, and we're prepared for it. So when you go and the professionals who are supposed to deal with this more often than we do aren't prepared, it's very frustrating, and I think it needs to be talked about. Because that's the other thing. If say that was our first trip to Vancouver and it went that haywire, it would have just been so much worse, but we at least know how to handle it. Yeah. And I think that's why we want to speak up about it, because it's like, you can speak up for yourself in those situations, and it is okay to feel frustrated, and that it's like a lack of human rights.
Well, and eventually I did get so frustrated that I asked the manager, I was like, I'm just curious, like, do they get training on passengers with disabilities and sensitivity training in that way? And she was like, well, yeah, like, but it's brief, and until they practice it a bit, they don't know how to do it. And it was just like very dismissive to the fact that I had just been made to feel like they like they couldn't put my chair on the airplane, or like me traveling was this like massive inconvenience.
Yes, that was the main thing. So that is like our slight rant about flights, and I think the positive solution to that is that I'll let you speak to this, but that there is like technology. First, I had this idea. I just want to say this. I want you to like check your bias when I say this. There are planes that exist that you can drive your wheelchair right onto and park your wheelchair in just the same as you do in a car. So when she drives into her van, it automatically locks down in a peg to the bottom of her van. And there is technology that exists that could have that at the front of the plane. So what do you think about when you think of the front of the plane? You think of first class. And that is the number one reason why that is not yet accessible or a thing yet. Is everyone's like ableist bias, or like that thought.
Totally.
Like, even when I first heard that, I was like, oh, maybe it has something to do with like the weight of your wheelchair can't be on the, but it's underneath regardless. So yeah, so I'll let you speak to it, like accessible planes a little bit.
Yeah.
That is an option.
Yeah. And yeah, it's just like the technology exists. It's all there. And like Justine said, it's just, the plane won't look as pretty and uniformed because one seat will look different. And that's just like basically how society views any accessibility accommodation, is that it looks different, and so therefore it's not as good. And yeah, I just hope that one day they start using the technologies that can allow people to stay in their wheelchairs on planes, because I deal with like probably every second flight, I have a broken wheelchair that I wait months to fix. And I deal with a ton of pain from being out of my wheelchair in an airplane seat compared to my seat that's like made for me to sit in all day. And there's just so many like quality of life things that would be made easier if wheelchairs were allowed on planes. And so, yeah, I just think that it's something people should think about, like you said, because it's like, why isn't there?
And the other like general bias that you feel from other people is like, why do you need to travel so much? Like, just stay home.
Yes.
And that's ridiculous for a number of reasons. I mean, we do recognize that we are very privileged to travel as much as we do, and but at this end of the day, like, she has to travel to New York to get medication to stay alive. So there's one example, just one tiny example of all the reasons that everyone should be able to travel, because it's not always just luxury. Sometimes it is a necessity.
Yeah, and even like in 2 weeks, we have to travel again for a conference we're speaking at. And that is something I would love to do for work, is travel to conferences and speak. But it's something that after this trip, I was like, well, I don't know if that's possible to me because I need to always have a functioning wheelchair. And right now, both of them are broken. And so I'm literally having to consider like my career options based on the inaccessibility of travel.
Mm-hmm. So then we got to Hawaii.
Thank goodness.
Which was, you know, that's the thing. First day that we're there, it's like, who cares about any of that? We're in Hawaii, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Best birthday trip. Shay organized all of it with her family, got a hotel. All of my favorite people got to come, so I'm very grateful for that. It was super cool. And there were some exciting new accessibility things in there as well. That's one of our favorite things about Hawaii, is that it is still America, so it is relatively accessible. And especially in like the wealthy areas like Waikiki Beach. So yeah, what did we discover at Waikiki Beach? We
discovered a beach mat that allowed me to drive like basically right into the middle of the beach from the walkway, on like, a firm enough path that I could drive out there. So we could all set up for our beach days, like on each side of me on the beach mat. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it was amazing. And something, I've been to that beach off and on for like 10 years, more than that probably. And it has never existed before. I've always had to sit back on the paved pathway, so that was very exciting to discover.
Yeah, I think to just give the visual more, so otherwise she would have to sit back on this paved pathway that's basically just a sidewalk on a busy street, and then there's like a long stretch of beach to the water. So say anyone that she's with that wants to go swimming, you have to walk all the way down the beach, come all the way back up, and it's like more busy and crowded, not really relaxing beach. Mm-hmm. But so this time with the mat that goes out further, which I think is actually set up also for like them to pull surfboards and stuff in and out of the water on. But it was perfect because, then she can get closer to the water, have more of a relaxing like beach day. Yeah. And like we could build a sandcastle by her rather than sitting on concrete.
Yeah.
So, that was amazing. We also used the beach wheelchair.
Yes.
So that's pretty cool. It was actually free. So especially on Derusi Park.
Fort Derusi
Park. Which is right by like the military museum in Waikiki. Mm-hmm. There's a little station set up where you can rent like umbrellas and beach chairs and things like that, and the beach wheelchair is part of it, but it's free. And so you just go and you take it, and so basically we can leave her wheelchair on the sidewalk, and we'll show the video now of me like lifting her into it, and then can take her right into the water in the chair. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
I may have pulled my abdomen trying to get her back out, and a little older woman who was wearing full-on jeans ran in the water to help us get her out. So here's the thing. You get in the water on the beach wheelchair.
And it's great.
But it's very buoyant. It has it's meant to float. So once she's out of it, it's just like pops right up. And then to get her back in it, I have to like lift her like above my head pretty much to get in the chair, and it's just, or else carry her up like the rocky beach kind of. Yeah. So it was,
while the waves are hitting you and the tide.
And the current. So
it's a lot.
It was an adventure, but we got to swim together in the ocean, which is pretty cool. Yeah. And there's a clip of that.
You definitely need like 3 people probably to use the beach wheelchairs safely.
Yes. Yeah, like I would say, like even for a child, just because it floats and the water's pulling it, and it's just like a lot going on. So you need to be prepared. Yeah. And then you ended up staying longer.
Yeah.
She changed her flights and stayed
the next leave. I couldn't do it. 10 days and I couldn't leave. So luckily my dad and my grandparents and uncle had arrived 3 days before we were supposed to leave. And so I convinced my dad to let me stay with him for for a week of his trip. And so, I was there for like 18 days.
Yeah.
And it was heaven.
At the time that I left, my cat Mowgli was missing in the neighborhood. So I was a wreck at the end of the trip. I was like, I need to get home to my cat. And he came home, thank God. I have to frame his missing cat poster next to his warning ticket from the city of Calgary because he is Houdini. He escapes and runs away all the time. But I enjoyed my week of literally not moving from the couch and just hanging out with the pets. Like, as much as she needed to stay and be in the heat and like with her family, I needed to just like be a hermit for a week and die on the couch.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how we roll, and it was perfect.
Yeah.
And yeah, as she mentioned, now we're very excited. We had a call this morning with Coloplast. Can I say it, or will we have to?
No, I don't think we're good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With Coloplast, which is the catheters that she uses, and we're going to speak at their international employee conference in 2 weeks in Toronto. So yeah, that's gonna be cool.
We found out well in Hawaii that like 3 weeks later we would be flying to Toronto together.
Yeah.
But it's very exciting because this is like the kind of thing we wanted to do.
Yeah. We're speaking about her experience using the catheters to the employees so that they can, it's their first time ever having an actual catheter user at something for the employees. So that's exciting. It's like a really good opportunity to spread awareness, and also just like I think to give them like an ego boost, because we do really care about those products.
Yeah.
And just to be like, hey, this is cool.
Well, and I think that Justine really helps like bringing the thoughts and questions and perspective of people who aren't catheter users. Like you're good at like explaining it in a way that would make sense, whereas to me it's just like,
yeah, you just can like jump to the medical jargon and just get it, but I'll be like, she pees through her belly button. And it just
makes
works.
a great entertainment.
Yeah. Piece. So I think honestly what we should do is record our presentation before and post that on YouTube maybe after.
Yeah.
Because then we can practice and whatever. So I think we'll share it with you.
Yeah.
Our first paid speaking gig together. So that's
we get to fly on a Dreamliner.
We're staying at the Westin
Castle. Right on the water.
It's gonna be gorgeous. Yeah. It's really cool. Really cool.
It's just, I'm so grateful for an opportunity like that. It'll be a nice little getaway for Justine and Audrey and I.
It's just like, otherwise it was just Hawaii. Like,
I'm still so relaxed from it that I'm like, no, I don't think there's anything else. It's Hawaii. I recommend if you can ever get there, go. And especially people with disabilities. If you have questions about accessibility in any way, let me know. The bus system's fully accessible. I've found amazing accessible hotels. Even just ways to save money. Yes. Where she especially is very good at traveling on a budget. Like bus to and from the airport, went to the grocery store, all that fun stuff. I make them do it the hard way sometimes, but not really. Well, I mean, it is sometimes. Though. It's like, gotta save the dollar when you can. Make us do the whole thing is the hard way. Okay, thanks for coming back and watching. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Woo! Aloha. I did that when I was saying goodbye to Pete earlier today.